What's up, everybody? It's your favorite nightmares, favorite nerd, and today we are looking at the Planet X Apocalypse. Now, this is on loan to me from Cape Cod John. I want to get that out in front of this early on. So I'm taking extreme care with this because it's expensive and I certainly don't want to have to try and help him replace it. That being said, we're going to go through the modes. We're going to go through as much as we can. I'm going to try to cover everything that I can. The instructions for this suck. Seriously suck. Therefore, probably chances I'm going to make transformation mistakes along the way. If you're the person that gets irritated about such things, my advice, check out now, Mac. It's not going to be your day. And if you tell me how much of an idiot I am and how I transform something wrong, I'm just going to tell you to relax. People are going to see the relax comment, they're going to laugh at you because you look silly, and there's no way it can win. Do you know what I mean? So that's just to be forewarned that this may not be the smoothest transformation video. I don't own it. I don't want to mess with it a whole lot because I don't want to damage it. There are some pieces that I think can be damaged, so we're going to talk about those. We're going to talk about the details. We're going to talk about the build. We're going to talk about the articulation. We're going to talk about the features. We're going to talk about as much as I can remember to talk about as we're talking about it, but there's a chance that some things might fall through the cracks. You're going to have to be able to deal with that. So this comes relatively close to this in box, I believe, and you have to kind of get it into this mode, and this is the small ship mode. This is like an added bonus, and my plan is to go from this into Nemesis mode, into base mode, into Trypticon, and finish on Trypticon. So I'm going to go handheld for a minute so we can see all the detailings and stuff. It's a big unit, so I'm going to be going handheld a lot. So a lot of detailings come through. Translucent plastics for the eyes and for this cover here. And this isn't the eyes, but it's like, it's kind of a smart way to approach it because it's like the faux Trypticon head turning into the front of the ship, which is clever in a way to keep the scale and perspective of it. All these little spiky bits. The real Trypticon head tucked in, but still kind of continues the same sort of design through, so that ends up looking pretty cool. We got these thrusters here on the side. You can spin them either way you'd like. So that's all good. And then we have these bits here, and you can have them up. They are loose and they're like spring loaded. This is something that we're going to talk about, but this doesn't plug in very well. You can have these down. There's a lot of different options you can do with these. And then there's some purple paint on what ends up being the arms. We have these thrusters in the back, and we have some purple paint, some metallic purple paint too. It looks really nice. I don't know if you guys can see that. It looks really quite good. But it's a cool enough looking ship. It's pretty wicked looking. There is this issue. It's an issue that's going to plague this entire review. So I'm commenting on this now, and I may not comment on it again, but this is obnoxious. There's two pegs, one in there and then one into the back of the ship head there, and they both peg into the same two ports, and neither peg is really long enough to secure the connection. That being said, everything else looks good. We're going to talk about a couple accessories and how they relate to this. So he comes with a lot of these accessories. They're translucent pieces, and there's pressure on the back of them that make them light up. And then there's these little orifices, so to speak, all over this thing where you can kind of plug them in. There you go. A little turn there. Got that one. So then in the end, you kind of have this look from the rear with all three in there. Now, there's no turning them off. Once they're in, they're in. But that is very cool. It looks even cooler on the viewfinder here in my camera, but it is a very cool feature. It's not very practical, but it is cool. The same thing can be applied to these side thrusters here, just by opening up this piece and then inserting the same way and locking them in. So then you can have that look on the side, or you can cover this up and it'll shine through there. Either way, very cool, very thoughtful, not practical, but pretty awesome. Now, this is Nemesis mode. There's not much that really needs to change from your small jet mode with the exception of this front piece here. This is the only part, that part that always comes unplugged. It just comes unplugged and wraps through these legs. The one thing I want to show you that has to be changed is this part here, and this tab comes out and plugs in up there to solidify it, but I am not quite lined up, and I'm not going to take it, but it would sit up there, and that just solidifies it. As it is right now, it's still fine. It's pretty locked in. I'm going to show you how this comes apart. I'm going to be taking it apart from now on to transform it because it's more manageable, it's easier to show on camera, and I feel like I'm putting less stress on this connection piece. So also, I want to point out, just so there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, You see those two little ports there? They can connect also to resecure the connection, but since I am taking this apart at every turn, I'm not going to go through the hassle of plugging them in and plugging them back in, and et cetera, et cetera. So I just want you guys to be able to get the point, really. This thing is massive. There's Tiger Tracks. So it's a big girl, and it's pretty impressive. And I think it's cool to have a Nemesis. Like, I really do. Obviously, like, you know, you see that plug there? Cause, like, I'm just not trying to put a whole lot of strain on it, but, like, that'll plug in there. And see, but I'm also, I mean, you know what I am? I'm a tinkerer. So, like, when I see something, I just kind of want to keep messing with it. Yeah. And then that's just going to line up there, isn't it? Yeah. And now that's connected. And you would just do the same for the other side. Now, to disconnect it, because we're going to go to base mode next, I'm going to try to show you that the best I can. And what you really want to do is just get these arms, or these legs rather, out of the way. So the feet just come back like that. And then I'm doing this one hand, so you just have to pardon me. There we go. And then that will allow you to get this piece. If I clear, you gotta clear those things from around those little claws. And then you can get this out, and that's where the connection is. I'm gonna take that apart real quick. So I've disconnected that piece, and then this piece comes around and tabs in, and that's how it was. So I just took that off and around, plugged that piece in, wrapped the legs around, put this through the legs. It's that part is not that complicated as long as you prepare the legs for that mode initially. So now you have this section off. We're going to connect the tail. This piece here shifts up and down. So, I'm sorry, you can't see that. This piece here shifts up and down. So just shift that out of the way in order to get this connected. And this just plugs in a series of ports and pegs. And I think it's gonna go like this. This is gonna be the back. So this is gonna be the front. So this is gonna go straight up like this. And we need to bring the legs out and around. And we want the heel up and then the other feet, the other toes out to the side. And then this devil dog face. I think we want this spun around like that. And I think that makes a buffer. I could be wrong about that. I'll check that. There, heel up, this, and then that just sits like that. And that is the back part of the base. The only thing I'm not sure about is this, but I'll check that and I'll definitely get back to you. I feel like that should be how it is, but I honestly think it's might be like this. But we'll check and we'll make sure at the end. Okay, so the main problem here is getting the head out, this piece here. So we can start by pushing in the thruster here, and then we can, this piece is on a hinge here, so this can come down and you can kind of, this is pegged in, so you gotta break the peg away. All right, let's try it on this side. There we go. And we're gonna get this down. Now we're gonna say pretty please. There we go. This, get this out of the way. Let's actually flip it around now. And you can, I don't even know if you guys are seeing this. I gotta look through this thing too. All right, so we got a break, so to speak. This piece, these arm pieces are on this whole middle assembly that's connected to this chest. And in order to get the clearance to move the head through this small cavity here from this chest opening, you have to, I don't like this either. You have to pull this section away from the chest. Once again, I'll try it on this side. There. That's one. that's the other. And then we want to fold that out. And then we can tab this back in. There's two places that these can tab in, and you still want to be, I believe, in the lower section. And then we want to go to the higher section for T-Rex mode. This is going to come out around here. All right, let's stop there for a second. Let's get these arms in a better spot. So we want to spin this around so that that is facing up, and then these are facing up as well. And that is more so, I believe.
Star Wars is ready.
What is that?
Star Wars is ready.
Okay, all right, we'll watch Star Wars. Let me just give me a couple seconds. I'll be right up, okay? All right. I gotta go watch Star Wars, but let's finish this other side real quick, and then we'll go. Make sure this flap here is up, and then rotate this around so that you can kind of tuck the spikes on the shoulder into there, and then that sits up. Rotate the elbow around. I had it upside down. That's what it is. I think that's it. Actually, let's put this this nose cone away real quick. It's all right. There. And then this plugs into the bottom here. And then we're gonna take the back side, and I may have to do this, and we're gonna plug this piece into there. And there's base mode, I think. And I'll get it cleaned up and we'll take a bit of a look at it. But that is it, kind of rough. And then these things angle up and they can be like missile pods or whatever. A couple things after consulting the instructions, and I apologize, it's next to impossible really to like really dig into this thing when I feel like I have to be that cautious and I'm looking at these terrible instructions, which I will show you a picture of before it's all said and done. And I have to just keep going back and consulting with them, and it's hard to realize little nuances, but I did notice a couple things. Number one is this back headpiece should be flipped up. It's not a real headpiece, it just looks like a head. We'll talk about it later. And then here, this piece, which is used, well, we're gonna get fairly intimate with this in a minute. But this comes forward, if I can, there. And then Trypticon's dinosaur head kind of sits in that little pocket. And that's basically it. There may be a couple things that tab in a bit better than what I have them, but I think you get the general idea. I'll back out a little bit, and we'll talk about it. So base modes with Transformers, as the feet are all crooked and cattywampus, and it's really up to you as far as how you want to kind of work all that. I'll give you a little size comparison, a little IDW swerve. This guy, whatever his name is, doesn't really matter. And that fella, don't write it in the comments, I don't care. So I am one of those guys that's kind of forgiving of base mode. I have the two turrets here facing two different directions, so you can see how that will affect the aesthetic depending on kind of what you want to do. But I'm one of those guys that's kind of forgiving of base modes. I even like the Carnifex base mode. You know, I just think that it kind of looks interesting. I wish I had the luxury of being able to spend the type of money for this type of stuff to display them in a base mode. Unfortunately, usually when I spend this type of money as an investment, I really need that presence on a shelf, so I have to display it in its main mode, which in this case is obviously the Dinosaur Mode, right? So if I were to buy this, I would have to have it in Dinosaur Mode. I just wouldn't be able to do this because it just wouldn't give me, I don't think, the satisfaction. I wonder if maybe... But a lot of this stuff is like, it's the same across the board. You know, like with these base modes, like it's kind of like, it gives you a ballpark to sort of be in, and then you can kind of adjust it to your liking depending on your sensibilities. Like little things like the wings. Do you want them out to the side? Do you want them up? Do you want them like that? You know, all sorts of stuff. Stuff you can do with the feet. I think that most people like the tower straight up, but you can have it forward if you want, with a little Scorponok vibe to it. There's just a ton of stuff you can do. You can put a little fella in here, maybe a little bit more little, but let's check this Iron Factory guy. You know, it's like a little space form. I think this stuff is pretty cool. I just rarely find that anything that I buy that works this way is affordable to a point where I would mind buying one to have displayed this way. I hope you understand what I mean by that. But that being said, I think this does as good or as poorly a job as any other one. It's just kind of one of those things that it never really works as a Ford. It just sort of works as a display, almost like a diorama prop. And a good-looking one, don't get me wrong, but one that you have to be fairly committed to in order to really utilize. So once again, I've only separated it for the sake of an easier to understand review, for the sake of transformation. All this stuff does transform, at least as far as I can tell from the instructions, while combined. But I feel like if I broke it down this way, it'd be easier for you to see what's going on when you try to transform yours. So, like I said, this piece here slides up and down, and depending on where you have it is how it is. So we're gonna turn this around and, or no, we're gonna, oh, that was my phone, like that, so that it plugs in properly. And then that's the tail. This is the legs. So we're gonna turn those, straighten the heels. And the good news is that's the legs done. Easy peasy. In regard to this piece, we're gonna close this up. We're gonna fold this down the way it was before. What I'm basically trying to do is streamline this as much as possible so there's just less stuff hanging off. While you have this piece up, you can go ahead and flip these things out right here, and then you can collapse this back down. And then underneath, you can flip this piece in and this piece up. And that's pretty much how you need it for Dinosaur Mode. The head, all right, let's, so these two pieces here, let's talk about them for a minute. Like, I feel like we can get a little bit more intimate with this thing now as it's starting to take shape. So these don't feel as secure to the piece as most of the other things, and there's a lot of leverage that you can get here, so I would be very cautious with these in general, these two flaps here. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna pull away the kind of flank of Trypticon. That one gives me a little bit more grief. Oh, you know what? Let's open this up as well. That probably won't hurt. There. And then we're gonna raise, I hope you can see in there, we're gonna raise this up. But while we have this undone, we're gonna manipulate this head around like that, because that's how we want the head. So on this side, same thing. We can snap this into place now, and that can actually sit back down. This connection there is just a little tight. Rocks up, plugs in, and then this piece sits down. This actually comes around on the back, and then, let's see, how does this go? Or does it go like this? It goes like this, and then plugs into the back. so that these two kind of spikes are sticking up over the top of his shoulders. And then we have the arms, which is really where most of the engineering is, and it's really just in the hands. So I'm gonna do my best. Open this up here, that's his thumb. And then this piece connects to these two pieces, and that's a separate situation, which we'll get to. Open up this here, these two sections, and then flip out the fingers. She cut off all of her fingers, trade them in for dollar bills. Sorry. And then this comes down and plugs in, and these, I'm sorry, these come around and plug into there. Cake up on some makeup to cover all those lines. Shout out to you if you know what I'm talking about. All right, we'll do the same down here. I mean, I did Big Pun the other day, you know, I might as well do a little of that fella too, Mr. Brian. Open these up here, flip the hands, same thing. It's the same thing we just did. And then, obviously you need to get this around. And these come back over, they form together, and then they plug into the thumb here. And this is a little bit, it's not challenging to do IRL, if you know what I'm saying, but when you got the camera in front of you, it's a bit of a pain. And then I think these can just flap down, and I don't know where these go. See, the thing is with this is there's a lot of stuff that I don't like. You can do tons of stuff in terms of how you feel is cool, but I don't know what the proper kind of mode is for it. I'm guessing like this. There. See, that's just a little bit uncomfortable. And there we go. And then we'll combine them. All right, so moment of truth. We're gonna turn this around. That's the waist swivel there, so that it's oriented properly. And then we're gonna combine it. I had the backpack kind of loose, which shouldn't be an issue. And we're gonna sit that down in there, and then we connect it with these two. And this time I will solidify it, because this is how this bad boy is gonna stay in my home until John comes through for Skullfest and takes him back. So I'll get him cleaned up, and then we'll take a look at him. But that's him. All right, so I think you guys know that when it comes to pieces that are this big, I like to really go through step by step and handle the articulation, and talk about the detailings and such. So it's light piping for the eyes, which is a bummer, of course, but that's how they do business, so that's what we should expect. You have this piece that covers down on the laser rifle or whatever that sits in there, Trypticon style. And then the jaw does open up to a ridiculous degree, displaying another laser rifle. And then the teeth are painted I think they're painted a gunmetal. I can't really tell. Either way, they look fine. And then we have purple detailings on the side. You have a neck swivel, and you have a hinge up and down. And there is an additional neck swivel, I think. Or am I mistaken? Maybe I'm mistaken. But either way, you should be able to get everything you want out of this articulation-wise. There's no real issues there. As for the abdomen, we have a lot of translucent plastics. We also have some purple paint, it looks like applied. I almost can't tell, even under these lights. Yeah, but I think it is. Might be some different color plastics. We have some gunmetal accents. We have some metallic purple paint up in here. And then the waist swivels just fine. Nothing gets in its way whatsoever, including its fairly sizable backpack. As far as the shoulder, you can, of course, manipulate this out if you want to, and it does have the same light up feature and so forth. And then you have the ratcheted joint here, which is going to hold that position with no problem. You can also ratchet it up here and just use this. It's not the ugliest thing in the world to do it. I'll try to back out a little bit. Like, I don't think you would even notice it on a shelf, but it also ratchets to about there. You can also lift this spike up out of the way and get basically 90 degrees up. So it's not an issue either way. No bicep swivel, but you do get it. We're gonna get here in a second. Well, I guess it's you get it at the elbow, basically. The elbow itself is ratcheted also and gets you just shy of 90 degrees. And then you have these hands, which I hate. I hate the thumb. John actually told me, he was like, you're going to hate the hands, and he was right. They're just obnoxious. They're fiddly to deal with, and they're not a lot of fun. And I'm trying to get them back in together now. Alright, so I decided to do it and cut it in because I love you guys. So, the thumb is on 2 hinges here and here. Can you see that? And then these are on a hinge here and here, and both fingers operate independently, which is ultimately fine. You don't get a wrist swivel, obviously, because these 2 things wrap around the overall forearm, but you know, the hand gripping motion does work. Detailings wise, you have some purple plastics, you have this translucent plastic in here, and then it's pretty much just this other stuff, which is just this flat black. And then you have this wing here, which you can have kind of any which way your heart desires. That's on the back side of the forearm. I'll look and see when we do final thoughts how they suggest you pose it, but I kind of like it just flapping up against the back of the elbow. I tell you what, this Trypticon does not want me to enjoy my day whatsoever. I thought I had shot it all, went to go edit it, and realized I'd missed the articulation. Like, I didn't hit record. I know I did it, but I didn't hit record. So we're going to go through it now. And before we do, I just want to mention here that there is, let me see if I can't back out a little bit. There is an ab crunch. I did miss that. And it's just 1 click forward. But it's still, I mean, better 1 click forward than 1 click back, and better 1 click forward than no click at all. So that's good. Did we talk? I'm not sure if we talked about this face, but this is that face I was talking about. And you know, it's just a little strange stylistic choice there. Anyway, we have ratcheted universals for the hips, and they work well. Full Van Damme. Way past the full Monty. No thighs. Oh yeah, and you don't get a thigh swivel, but you can invert the thigh a little bit. Not that that would help much, because usually you want an outward movement on the thigh. So that's a bummer, and I don't feel like there's any good reason for them not to have it. For the knee, it's a ratcheted joint, and you get not a great range. Not a great range, maybe 45. And then for the ankles, thankfully, you have a tilt all the way back, a bit forward as well. Then you have an additional toe hinge here, or foot hinge rather, and then a heel spur that you can adjust. Each toe is individually articulated at 2 hinges, so you can manipulate all of those. And most importantly, you have an ankle rocker. That's somehow they managed to make ratcheted. It's only 1 click forward, but still, it's pretty nice. Detailings wise, it's a mix between purple paint, translucent plastics, purple paint on purple plastics, and the like. What I do like is that the uniformity that they managed to keep. Like, you know, like these are different, but they're all like sculpted the same, and they're different types, and then like it just adds an interesting look. Of course, you can add in your light up effects there, but it's a very cohesively unified sculpt on this that as you begin to really dissect it, it definitely comes through. The tail is ratcheted at each joint, so everywhere that you think it would bend, it does, and it is ratcheted, and it is quite nice. Really well done. Not ratcheted here, this last one, or the second to last one, but every other one is. And it is very clicky. The joints feel great. It is tremendous hardware being used there, and I applaud them for it. And then I think the back of it cleans up fairly well. And then you have like the faux head / spaceship on the back as a backpack. I think it looks cool. I think these look like little wings, and that like transfers through. So I think a lot of this really does work aesthetically. It's hard to pull it off in a space this small where I'm reviewing it, but I think a lot of it really does carry through in terms of color scheme and kind of overall presence. Size comparison wise, there he is next to Warbitron, Computron, a Masterpiece car, a Deluxe, and Swerve. So I think that I've seen him next to the Omega. I don't have the Omega Supreme from Planet X, but it seems like it's a great size for him. It seems appropriate I know most people want him to be bigger, and I wouldn't complain if he was bigger as well, but it doesn't seem inappropriate to have him this size, especially next to like the smaller bots. When you get him next to a combiner that's kind of in that chugster piece realm, part masterpiece scale in terms of bots, but the combiner kind of looks more in a what you would expect for a classics line in terms of size. It doesn't quite translate as well, but I think overall it's going to do its job just fine. Final thoughts wise, I just wanted you to see how cool that is for a second before we start talking about this guy, because although that is very cool, it's not as though he is without problem. So let's talk about the problems. Most of the problems here are just having to deal with a robot, a creature robot of this size. He has tons of ratchety joints. The problem is you have to manipulate those ratchety joints in order to transform, and sometimes that can become obnoxious. The transformation process is obnoxious here, but I'm not sure if they could work around it. The only other issue I have is that for his size and for his price, I would have liked if a little extra TLC went into the finish on this guy. Not to say that I would have expected a paint finish, just saying a finish in general, just saying a type of finish, like little bells and whistles, little nuances, little paint details, just little things. Like they did a little bit here. I'm not sure if you can see like that gunmetal up in there, but like, throw a wash on that. Go the extra mile when you're asking, a pretty hefty price for something. I think it is around $400. I could be wrong. It wasn't cheap. The other issue I have is also in regards to transformation. Most of my issues here are in regard to transformation, and that is, I really think that there should have been more stuff for things to tap into. A lot of this just kind of, for me, not spaceship mode so much, but base mode more so. It's just kind of like, just put it where you want it, guy. Just if you like it there, then just put it in there. And I'm like, no, I want it to be secured, Mac. Tell me where it goes, and I'll make sure it happens. You know what I mean? There's not a whole lot of that there. Lastly, there are a few little weird decisions, like the translucent pieces that are hanging off as the spikes in his nether regions. And also like the chest, how limited the open up is on the chest in order to get the head through and everything else. And you kind of just slide things around. It's not a great fit. That seems like it's little decisions like that. It could have put everything on a double hinge and had all the space in the world to manipulate the head and the thruster into the chest. That comes down to a problem that I have with Planet X from time to time, which is their clearances and tolerances. And on a figure this size, it's that magnified to this size. However, I must admit the good greatly outweighs the bad. The sculpt on this thing is tremendous. There's sculpted line work and detail work everywhere. It really comes through. It evokes the character from the game. If you don't like the character design from the game, then you shouldn't be considering buying this. It's very specific to the game. If you do like the character design from the game, I can say that it translates extremely well. The hardware is tremendous. Every joint, with the exception of the hands, of course, every joint moves exactly the way you wish it would. I didn't mention the hands in my negatives, but I think I touched on those in articulation. You guys know how I feel about them. I think that that's a really waste of space. Like, I don't think they're effective really at all. The paint, where it is applied well, and it looks good, it looks clean, it looks sharp, and looks appropriate. There's a nice mix of flat plastics and plastics with paint and translucent plastics and metallic paints that really comes through and gives a very lived-in world kind of feeling, even without like the dry brushing dirt deep details that a lot of universes that have that sort of look apply. It does seem like this comes from a place that has a real base somewhere. And an absolutely incredible presence. The articulation is, like I said, is pretty great. Ankle rockers and, the stuff that you wouldn't necessarily expect on a figure this size, or maybe you should expect but you don't often get. I think it cleans up fairly well in all modes. I think the alt modes look great. I like the base mode is kind of it's fine, but I think it looks cool. I like little towers and stuff like that. I'm a sucker for stuff like that. But aside from things plugging into it, I think it looks good, and I think the spaceship looks amazing. A little die cast, I feel like in the feet wouldn't have killed them on this. The ratchets could have supported it, and it would have given it even more weight and made it feel more worth your while. It doesn't ultimately mean it's a better thing when you have die cast in it. It's just that human beings equivalate weight with worth. So when we hold something this heavy, it feels like it's worth more to us, and it would have been gratifying to have a little bit of that in the feet. So, do I recommend it? If you like the War for Cybertron, Fall of Cybertron design, and you're collecting this line of Transformers, and you like the Trypticon, definitely, it's great. It does everything you'd want it to do, and it's going to look there, and it's going to be an eye catcher. People are going to notice this when they walk into a room. It's a fact. I've had it in my room, and people that don't even know anything about Transformers have been like, what is this? Because it's gnarly, you know, like all the spikes on the tails and everything. Like, it really draws your eye to it. So yes, I do recommend it, but don't buy this if you're thinking about getting this as a Trypticon for your G1 collection or anything like that. It won't scratch that itch. It won't scratch that G1 Trypticon itch. And I know people will probably mention the Titans Returns one for me. Like, I don't think that would scratch the Planet X itch, you know, and it certainly won't scratch my Trypticon itch. I'd be the luckiest guy in the world if that Titans Return Trypticon did it for me. Like that dude, Jack Nicholson, and as good as it gets. But unfortunately, it does not. So I'm waiting for something else to come along down the pike. That being said, if you like this design from this universe and you like Planet X products in the past, I can say this is one of the better ones in terms of build quality, and the aesthetic, it kills it. I think they did a really great job. A couple things could have been done better. That is par for the course. Maybe it'll go down to a cheaper price on clearance or something, but maybe it'll sell out and you won't be able to get it like that Omega Supreme. So you just never know. I do recommend it. I do think it is a quality build figure, and I do think that you will be happy with your purchase once you get it transformed and get it on the shelf. One more thing before I go. Planet X, if you don't listen to anything else I ever say, rework your approach to instructions. When you have a figure of this size, and you decide to put all of your instructions in a pull-out poster like it's a CD insert, it's not appropriate, it's obnoxious, it's frustrating, and it's irritating. Like, put a little extra detail in. Put the detail that you put into your figure, give a little bit of that love in the instructions. It would make reviews like this a little bit easier. I know this isn't the best review I've ever done, not the most thorough review I've ever done, but it's a very hard kind of piece to capture every nuance, and I wanted to pay a lot more attention to what it is, what it looks like, than how it works in terms of transformation. Hope I was able to capture a little bit of both, but you know, win some, lose some. Sometimes you eat the bear, sometimes the bear eats you. Thanks for listening, thanks for watching. Until next time, take care. So, my buddy Cape Cod John came down, and he brought these pieces with him. And I am very appreciative of that. And he was like, look, you don't have to ship it back to me. I'm coming down for Skullfest. I'll pick it up then. All good. Sounds like it was just the perfect scenario. Picture perfect. Until, I think in a moment of excitement for the road trip, he was hanging out with a buddy of mine, Adam, and he came by my house on that Saturday and all that kind of stuff. I think in a moment of excitement, maybe was a bit careless. I think he would admit a bit careless. Threw his car into reverse and was in the process of backing over his Planet X Trypticon. Now you know, I don't often show packaging on my channel, but today I think it's worth it. So this is what's left of his Planet X Trypticon box after backing over it, and he was sure that he had obliterated that piece and sent it straight to the moon. Now, you and I both know, here's another piece of it. You and I both know that that's not the case because we just finished looking at it, and I want to tell you why. Although I hate Planet X's instructions, their packaging is great. This is a nice foam. It's cut out perfectly. Figure was in here. The car backed over part of it. Like, you know, didn't roll over it, but, you know, one of these numbers. Figure was fine. Everything is secure. So shout out to Planet X for that. Shout out to Cape Cod John for making the sacrifice. Till next time.